Hello Giants fans, welcome to Giants Baseball 101. I'm Gabe Vaughn, your host. The Giants beat the Brewers today 4-1. Alex Cobb went 7 scoreless innings today. Joey Bart had an RBI double in the first inning, then later in the game. Thairo Estrada hit a 2-run homer, and then Brett Wisely had the solo shot. So the Giants took this series against the Brewers. They're climbing back up again. Their record right now is 15 wins and 17 losses. Tomorrow they've got Ross Stripling on the mound, which to me is not super promising by itself, given that Stripling hasn't shown his greatest stuff as the Giants starter, but you never know what's going to happen. I think that Stripling is capable of keeping the game together, but the way I really see it is you just never know, like on a day-to-day basis, what's going to happen with him. And then, of course, if his start is cut short because the Brewers rally and the Giants probably do have the pitching depth to take him out if that's a necessary thing to do to save their game. So I'm really looking for a sweep here. I don't know that we get our hopes up too much, but I think a sweep is a real possibility. And the Giants are really keeping their game together and hitting those home runs too. They hit 2 of them today. That's just really a powerful tool for the Giants this year. And it's really everything about the team has just been a seesaw this year. They've been on winning streaks and they've been on losing ones. And so far, the bads outweighed the good by a little bit. 17 losses to 15 wins, but not by much. And you remember, like 2 other times, well, it depends how you want to count it. I mean, the beginning of the season, you can say that was the 3rd time when the Giants were in their first week and behind in the record. If you want to count that as a time when the Giants almost came back and tied the record, but they didn't. They got behind again at the last minute. If you want to count that, but I was thinking that maybe that'd be the thing that's the small sample size, and we just kind of start at a point, start the evaluation of points a little bit later in the season where the Giants have a few more games under their belt. But however you want to do it, it's just we're seeing what we saw a week ago, where the Giants are slowly climbing up the ladder from their deficit, and they look a step away from tying the record. And last week, it was a 5-game winning streak they were on. Very close to tying their record, but then it just slipped away. They lost the last game, 4-game series against the Cardinals. Then they got swept by the Padres in the Mexico series over the weekend. Lost to the Astros the next day. And just before you know it, they're way behind again. Then they didn't stay in the dumps. They won 2 against the Astros. Now they've taken 2 against the Brewers. They're 15 wins, 17 losses. So now it's really looking like they're a small step away from tying their record. They're in the same position that they were before. And I don't want to make too much of data that could have maybe in some sense some random components to it, but I'm just not sure that you can call winning and losing streaks for a team random, essentially. Especially, I'll just give an example. When you're in September, when you're in a postseason race and you're down to the final week, is that random how a team performs then? No, they have to win the critical games, and it could come down to one game and how they play. And if it's the determining game between whether they get into the playoffs or not, that's going to tell you really everything about that team that you need to know, at least all of the major information you need to know about whether that year was a success or failure for them. And you might want to know how this applies to the current situation for the Giants. And certainly, we don't focus on all of the it's probably better to focus on and zero in on the individual games a little bit more once the Giants have more of them under their belt. But it's really never too early to see, I think, which way the seesaw is turning for a given team. So I see the Giants as standing in the position they were before a week ago, where they're close to turning their season around. They're really close. So now, what's the question? Well, it's how is it going to turn out this time? Are they going to fall way behind again? Or are they going to just drop their opportunity? Or are they going to finish the climb and tie their record and get ahead? What's going to happen? At this point, are the Giants going to stay at the top of the seesaw, or is it going to turn the other direction? That is the question. That's where the Giants really need to do better. Now, remember something else. A week ago, when the Giants fell into their new struggle, when things, as I mentioned before, fell away from the Giants after they were so close to tying their record, after they were so close to getting back into contention, when things just slipped away from them, you will remember, it is not like they were unable to score runs. It's not like they were unable to hit home runs. It's not like they were unable to hit for power altogether. No, they had some high-scoring games there. I don't think that's really the issue. They could get some things going. And you could say it was just a general issue with the pitching. That's probably true. I mean, but the 16-run game that they played against the Padres when the Padres beat them 16-11, well, I guess that is a 5-run difference, and maybe proportionately it doesn't look like too much when compared with the 16 runs that Padres scored. It probably, 5 runs might seem like a slim enough lead in a high-scoring, crazy game like that. I don't know. Depends how you look at it. But the Giants, you have to blame their pitching all around in that game. That's definitely true. But you just asked the question, how often do we really expect to see that? Well, I mean, that was a really unlucky day for the Giants for sure, but I think we can justifiably say we don't expect to see too many more 16-run blowouts by the pitching. And I think it's fair enough to say the pitching is solid enough to prevent those kinds of things from happening again, like too much in the future. However, what we've seen a lot more of is the Giants' bullpen giving up runs late in the game when they just can't do it, and blowing saves, that kind of a thing. It's not so much what the highest record of runs allowed by the pitching in a game was. I'm talking more about when you have clear examples of saves that the Giants should have locked down, or tie games that they should have held, or getting more specific, that you really have to count on them to have the pitchers to do it. And you realize, too, that pitching depth is not going to be enough for the Giants and we've talked about how maybe it kind of hovers around the slightly above average part of the spectrum. But that isn't going to be good enough even if you called it slightly above average, if they're still blowing too many saves, if they're still blowing too many games that they needed to win. What went wrong for the Giants was that somebody seemed to mess up every single day. And if you don't limit it to what happened in any particular week this season, but you just say, we're looking at all the games together, then yes, you will find the Giants had their share of games where their starting pitcher was effective and their offense was not, They could not get anything going. And you really feel, and rightly so, like that's a waste when they can't work in conjunction, can't get anything going one day, maybe the next day they do, but it's wasted. Now, I will just say, the bullpen, and sometimes a starter pitches like 7 or 8 innings, so maybe that's not too much of a factor, except of course that the 9th inning is like the most important one. But the bullpen, if it's ineffective, that really goes hand in hand with their inability to score runs when that's a reality. I think those things go hand in hand, because you could have a 0-0 game or 1-1 or whatever, and you're not getting runs on the board, and then it's the bullpen, it's a reliever you've got to count on who blows it. And in those games, you might feel like, would we really have been able to win in extra innings? And I don't know either. But, you'd rather just get the chance and have them hang on for as long as they can, And the point is that it was like someone was messing it up, somebody was blowing it every single day for the Giants, and that was not a good thing. That's what has to change going forward if the Giants are going to ultimately tie their record, if they're not going to fall that setback that they did before. They're 15-17 now. It would take 2 wins to tie this. If they can keep going, then they really can make something happen. So thanks for watching. This has been Giants Baseball 101. Please subscribe if you haven't. Also, please leave your questions and comments. You know where to do it. I'll see you next time on Giants Baseball 101.